Howdy, folks, here, and welcome back to another edition of the ONETA Show, brought to you by PTE Creative. As always, I'm your host, Evan Davis, and today, for this special NFL Draft edition, I'm here with our boy, Brandon Hullings. Now, today, we're trying to do experts versus Brandon mock draft.
You're certainly not an expert, for sure. Don't hold that against me.
You already proved your prowess. For those who are familiar, we had the ONETA Football Show, which kind of turned into the Far Out Football Show podcast. Now, it's just kind of defunct because we talk about it when we want to talk about it. But tape eval is key to part of our friendship, honestly.
Fair enough, absolutely.
We talk tape eval at least 6 months out of the year?
I would say easily.
Easily 6 months out of the year.
Easily.
So today, I've got 3 of the biggest mock drafts in the mock draft industrial complex.
Yeah. 4 if you include mine.
And then 4 if we include... Honestly, you're not going to be far off. You're not. Anyone who's going to out here telling you, like, oh, no, I know exactly what's going to happen. They fucking don't. They just fucking... It's not the case at all. So here we're just going to give a couple points of what Brandon would do. So What is your assessment here of how did you approach your draft?
So, as I went through, I tried to look at if I was the GM and how could I fix this team in the short term, but also tried to take the perspective of, do I have a short-term window, right? And whether, if I'm being fair, that short-term window I feel is realistic. For example, when we get to the Saints always feel like they can win. They always feel like they are in win-now mode. They're kicking tons of money down the road. They signed a more restrictive contract on Derek Carr, and then he apparently, quote-unquote, fakes a shoulder injury. If you listen to Dan Rossini's podcast, I don't know. That's its own other thing. So I did try to put myself in their shoes and give a little bit of perspective on, hey, this is what they think they should do to be better.
Yeah.
I have a few places where I'm like, I just can't get behind what I think these people will do. I'll try to my best to kind of touch on that before I give the actual pick. Right. But it is more of an exercise in, it's not predictive, but it is more of like, hey, how can we help this franchise while having maybe the rose-colored glasses of the GM.
Right. And that's the other thing is, people do not realize how often picks are made for legitimate non-football. There are contractual obligations involved. There are money reasons involved. Even in a post rookie salary restricted area, there are still salary concerns for some teams as well, where they might not take a position as high because they don't want to pay the extra 10 to 15.
And I would say the opposite is true too. A lot of I don't want to jump the gun, but like for example, this third or fourth highest paid on average position is defensive end, and maybe if you're a team picking in the top 5 and needs defensive end, and you have somebody who might need a 5th-year option, maybe you don't want to pay that 5th-year option. You pick somebody who might be a little better, and you move on from that person.
Are you talking about a team that's near and dear?
No, absolutely not. How I would never jump the gun like that. But
to the point where, direct quote, if I can, you won't even be wearing their paraphernalia this weekend as we go to the NFL draft. We will be in Green Bay in attendance for the draft.
Incredibly excited for that too.
Yes,
it's going to be an amazing experience for everybody. And if anybody's there who listens, please come by and find us. Obviously, you know what we look like, so please come say hi. I will be wearing this, for those of you who see it, classic Jamarcus Russell Oakland Raiders jersey as a warning to everybody who says force the quarterback positional value is the only thing that matters. Clearly, it is not. So I don't want to get
just talking about just one team in particular.
Sure, absolutely, no way. So don't want to get too far off the rails here, but absolutely, I'm excited for this exercise. I'm so excited for the draft. It's going to be an amazing experience.
So let's go. Let's just start with what looks to be chalk here. Our top 3 picks are going to be.
I would think so at this point.
I would assume. So everybody has Tennessee Titans #1 pick is going Cam Ward. I do have some thoughts on that. We'll come back to in a second. 2 at the Cleveland Browns, although I don't know if this is the best thing for them, they are definitely going to be taking Travis Hunter, wide receiver / corner, just general athlete out of Colorado, current Heisman Trophy winner. And 3, your team, New York Giants, taking Abdul Carter out of Penn State.
Yeah.
I want to go back to Ward.
Sure.
Is Ward truly a #1 quarterback in your mind?
I think he's #1 quarterback in this class by a wide margin. I think due to position, I know we said we don't want to force positional value, but in this class, in a position where starting Will Levis, who is more well known for memes than touchdowns. He's more well known for putting mayonnaise in his coffee than for putting points on the board. I think you do have to eventually make a move.
Yes.
Cam Ward, I think I'm going to quote this right. I think the best comparison I heard, I believe it was Nate Tice, said he's Diet Steve McNair. I think that's such an apt comp. In terms of he's a big body, strong arm, not insane elite where I'm going to be able to drive the ball like a Mahomes, like a Josh Allen, something like that. But the ability to be strong in the pocket, to manage the pocket well, on his pressured, the biggest thing is managing the pocket in terms of, especially for the bad team, right? The Titans are doing the best they can. A lot of work. You're picking one, you need a lot of work, but almost 50% of Cam Ward's pressured dropbacks and throws were either a throwaway or a scramble for positive EPA. He was 95th percentile.
The judgment's there for sure.
Sure, absolutely not. But that was not a thing. When he was playing at his 2 previous stops for Miami, the turnovers and these things to just taking sacks, taking hits were not a thing. So you see this growth, and that's not always something that grows, right? We know that pressure to sack rate is something that's very, very sticky, college NFL. He's shown an ability to grow through that. The scary thing about that is his average time to throw, according to Summer Sports data, is 2.9 seconds. That is an eternity to throw the ball. But again, he manages the pocket well. Again, when he's pressured, he escapes the pocket for positive yardage on 34% of those pressures, which is the number top 10 percentile in the country. Okay. Or when he can't, 13% of those are throwaways. So we're only getting sacked on a very low percentage of those things. He was 95th percentile in EPA per pass and 99th percentile when he took off the rush. So he manages the pocket well at multiple different levels.
Those are the things that I liked.
Absolutely.
A lot, was the judgment and to escape and make something positive happen, and sometimes a throwaway.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
look at, we're talking about going to Green Bay. The best asset Aaron Rodgers ever had was being careful with the ball. Beyond the fact that he's obviously a top 5 thrower all time in many people's estimation, it was, I'm not going to put the ball in harm's way, to the point where if a career high in interceptions at one time, I believe 4 picks in one season, that's gold for.
Yeah.
So if Cam Ward already has those decision making to pass it, that bodes well for Tennessee.
I'm really interested to see where this to your point of this tipping scale, because if you watch it, man, he's willing to roll right, roll left, take a hit, and again 2.9 seconds to throw the ball. Will wait for something to develop. Wants a deep shot. Will sit there. And the other thing is he will take get that ball off, take a shot to the chest. He's a big body guy, but man, how many shots do you want him really taking? Again, loves the middle of the field, loves the out routes. And again, I would argue some of these Miami receivers and tight ends didn't test as well as people thought. And so maybe they're having trouble getting in and out of routes, winning individually outside of the tight end position, which we're not going to get into that 3rd, 4th round position for their tight end. But didn't have a ton of people that could win independently. Not that it's something he's not used to, but certainly, and the one thing I'll end on with him is I don't know if you got to watch his Fortnite little piece there where he said, the top 2 running backs in the NFL are Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard. And then he said, Calvin, A.J. Brown's no Calvin Ridley, to quote specifically from his thing. So certainly feels like he is bought into the Tennessee Titans.
He is clearly a Tennessee Titan already.
Yes.
I don't know if you want to be part of that Twilight Zone.
I 100% agree.
Maybe it's just something about the stadium. Yeah. It's just a vortex for bad decision making.
Yes.
I don't know what it is. Let's trade A.J. Brown to, of all people, Howie Rose.
Well, and
then draft a 1-for-1 replacement right after that.
Absolutely.
Let's I don't know. Let's go with Will Levis. Let's get rid of Mike Vrabel, even though he's a successful coach with nothing on this team.
And Derrick Henry and all of your offensive line and Nate Davis, who I don't know, never understand that. But I do think Cam Ward is worthy of the first pick. On my board, he's closer to 7 if we're looking at the big board. But obviously, positional value and need sort of drives some of that conversation.
Right. As you know, I'm much tougher on it. I'm generally a lot fairer or even kinder. I have him as a middle of the first round guy, but I know the stuff. I'd be much more comfortable with a Cam 5 to 10, but that's not. There's one quarterback available in this draft that looks like it's a capability to be successful in a real level, and that's Cam. I understand. 30 seconds or less. Travis Hunter, Abdul. Are they truly the 2 pre?
Yeah, not, and I don't think it's particularly close. And I do for a long time had Hunter and Carter very close. As I went back, I did try to separate. If I was playing Travis at corner, he is I think significantly better prospect than Carter is at edge. If you're playing him significantly at wide receiver instead of corner, that slips a little bit in Carter's clear prospect.
I was gonna say that's the only part about Hunter's game. You and I both corner is far more. I don't understand this. He's gonna be much better as a receiver. The other thing is we're already seeing it. How desperate teams are on the corner. The corner market ebbs and flows. Where 1 year you're like, oh my god, the league's just loaded with corner. 2 years later, you're just like, 6 teams have a good corner. No one else has a good corner. Everyone's just trying to make it happen. Whereas every team at this point, if you don't have at least a receiver, not a game changer like Hunter could be, right. But if you don't have a single receiver, that's just a horrible mismanagement of team that you truly failed. It's not there's no receivers available.
Right.
It's just the receiver market is so saturated. Just by scarcity alone, it's almost a math logic. Hey, let's just put him at scarcer. Don't understand the appeal of the receiver.
Yeah, so I think part of it is, and again, to sort of transition, I have Travis Hunter going at 2. Andrew Berry has been pretty clear that they see him, the Browns GM, see him as a wide receiver first, and then they're going to dabble in the corner. I don't see that. I watch him move, and he move. If you looked at him without any context, and you looked at it, you would say that is a corner. The way that he moves,
yes.
The way he breaks in the ball, his hips, and man, the instincts, especially he's a fantastic man corner. Like he can man people up and do what you need him to do. He's a fantastic player in that. But the instincts in zone are just unbelievable. He led the nation in pass breaker percentile in man or zone. So like in terms of getting the hands up, getting the ball away. Also had 4 interceptions, and he was a top 15 percentile playing man and press. Man, press corner is so rare to play nowadays. He has the length, he has the strength, his ability to do it.
And you and I both love the press corner.
Oh my god, absolutely. The thing I think that people look at when he gets the ball in his hand, whether it's an interception, and again we talked about, he actually does now. He high points the ball so well. His ability to track the ball is an elite corner skill, is what makes him also good at receiver. But the ability to high point the ball over the receiver to make the play over, whether the receiver's 6'1" or 6'4", the ability to leap, come over the top, and you almost expect him to come down regardless if he's playing receiver or corner. Once he has the ball in his hands, he is one of the best I think we've ever seen. He moves, and the comp that I have, and I know it's a weird position, he reminds me of Lamar Jackson in terms of the ability.
They have a weird shake.
It is the ability to decelerate at exactly the right time and then accelerate better than everybody else around you. He is a master of understanding space, understanding angles, and again, that's also why he's a great corner in terms of special playing zone, and understanding when I need to accelerate and decelerate. And it's those things where you watch Lamar make a break for the end zone, he stops at the 1 yard line, lets somebody runs by him, he goes in. You see 2 or 3 games, especially early on when he's playing it, obviously, Jack State's a little bit different level of competition, but he just toys with these guys. And then even when he makes the leap to the Big Time Conference, he does the same thing. The instincts are elite, the ball tracking is elite, the hips, the feet, the ability, and he's willing to tackle, he's willing to hit. My comp for him is Champ Bailey, and I know that's a big
very high mark.
But people forget Champ Bailey played a little offense for Georgia. Like he went out there and played, maybe 20, 25 snaps. Charles Woodson played a little bit more. I honestly think coming out, Bailey was a better corner than Woodson was. At least that's just my opinion. And again, I didn't watch a ton of Woodson in his moment, but man, to pivot him to a wide receiver, and the wide receiver comp I have for him is Percy Harvin. If you can create, and his route tree is limited, in my opinion, he doesn't beat press well. But if you look at Matt Harmon from reception perception, he has him ranked as the second best receiver coming out of all time since 2012, behind Odell Beckham Jr. coming out of LSU in terms of winning at the line of swimmers versus press, which is a hell of a compliment. I don't see that. I see him lose at times at press. I see him not be able to stick on the route at the top, and it feels like his route tree is very loose. Yeah. For that to be his primary position, I really struggle. But if you're going to play him at corner and a little bit of offense, absolutely worth the pick. But
I like the Champ Bailey pick because it's a little touch here or there. People are expecting him 97 Dallas Deion Sanders, where Deion would just go play wide receiver sometimes because
Michael Irvin was suspended for gambling.
Yeah, pretty much. And Deion's just like, I'll do it. But as gifted as an athlete as Travis Hunter is, no one should, and anyone who does should immediately from their jobs. No one should ever comp anybody to Deion Sanders. No one has the speed and the athleticism that Deion Sanders had with the skill set that he.
Especially compared to the air. You always want to air adjust everything.
Yes.
He was so far in front of everybody else. It was unbelievable.
So just because he played for Deion, has similar traits to Deion, does not mean it's the only thing I'm cautious of. Those are the chalk picks. This is pretty much chalk at this point. New England 4, that's where the draft kind of starts in a lot of minds, simply because that's the mere people's mind. I have one or two players I could argue that are fringe in between. Interesting how you. But New England at 4, taking offensive tackle.
Yeah, votes are important.
As many people, he's going to be. See him as a tackler.
We didn't talk about the Giants, so I'm gonna do it very, very quickly.
Yes, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Abdul Carter led the nation in pressure percentage, was top 5 percentile against quality opponents. Which, again, this is also from Summer Sports. When you played a ranked opponent, how good were you? He was the #1 player in terms of pressure rate in those situations. And he was also the best player in terms of tackle for loss in the run game. Abdul Carter, I hinted at earlier, Kayvon Thibodeau might be a trade partner in terms of, hey, we're going to come back in later and pick up a Shedeur Sanders. I don't know how much we want to talk about Jackson Dart, but man, I struggle to take Jackson Dart in the first round. But you come back in for a quarterback, maybe Thibodeau's a part of that patch, so then you don't have to pick up the 5th-year option, and you have a much better player. Followed a similar path to Michael Parsons in terms of played inside linebacker, then once people graduated, moved outside. Extremely elite player. The only other blue chip, in my opinion, other blue chip player in this class. Giants have to take him regardless of the quarterback need. Moving to Will Campbell. It is really is the 32 arm length a death sentence. And man, it is really hard to say. But I if you look back historically, that seems to be the case, and it's not necessarily
it's not a knock on people.
But they're physical. Yeah. Honestly, the biggest comp I have is Peter Skoronski. He went 5 to Tennessee not too long ago at Northwestern.
Yeah.
Somebody who just a little bit shorter at stubbier, great run blocker, great feet, get to the corner, but like, if you're in New England and you're gonna end up against a Shaq Lawson, or I don't know if Von Miller's coming back for them, who have these elite links, and you're just not going to be able to get that edge to get the corner. You're not going to be able to set the hands the way you need to. You just can't play the position.
Well, just think of own division, whether he's healthy or not. You have Chubb coming off the edge in Miami, plus you have Jets have.
You talking about Jalen? Yeah,
Jalen Phillips. Thank you. You also have the Jets are loaded at constantly in and out, so you're having fresh bodies to battle. And Buffalo has been addressing that. Just got Joey Bosa. Yeah. Are you going to hold up like that?
Right.
At that. It's not necessarily enough to will.
No.
I love the idea. Someone said this to my research. Elliot Wolf is the de facto G.
Right.
Where did he learn? Best place to learn. Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Yep.
Especially with his dad, who's a Hall of Fame general manager.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So it's not as if it's
got
just
the genes for it.
It's just not a biased Packer fan saying. It's just kind of factual in the last 30 years. Everyone that comes out of Green Bay finds success in some way, shape, or form. And the philosophy always with those guys was if they were fringe, you try them at tackle, let them fail at tackle, because you know it's going to be pretty safe. They're going to succeed.
Sure.
If you have buddy on the offensive line that you're really excited about in New England, Will Campbell is a safe pick. Sure. To at least be like, hey, at least we got one guy to protect our investment.
Yeah.
Drake May looks like he can play.
Drake May looks like he's a lot of fun. And man, I think he's the guy, and I get why he went as high as he did. For me, I would say this Arba Membu out of Missouri is my top tackle. But again, Will Campbell seems to have a higher floor, I guess.
Yes.
But Campbell gave up less than 3% pressure rate less than 2.8% pressure rate when he was blitzed or stunted at in the SEC, which is the premier conference. You're doing some good stuff. Clearly, he's left on an island occasionally by significantly by the coaching staff. They trust him. The NFL, I know as good as the SEC is, it's not the NFL. Again, it's going to be interesting. Can he protect that outside shoulder and turn the way that you need him to? So again, as you said, you take best player available. If this feels like your highest floor, you kick him inside. You figure out tackle next year.
So we'll go to a player that I think you argue is middle of the blue chip and the rest of the guys. Schrager at 5 to Jacksonville has Ashton Genty. Kiper and Field Yates both have Mason Graham, defensive tackle. And Jeremiah also has Ashton Genty. Both of those guys, along with one other player, I think I can accept a 5 to 10 as they belong in that range kind of guys.
Yeah.
Whether I would them top 10 guys all the time is a different story. But I think they're close enough to the top end that I wouldn't.
Sure.
Jacksonville.
So before I say anything, I will say all of the momentum and rumors is that they are taking Genty. That seems to be the as we're a couple hours out, 24-ish hours out.
Yeah.
That seems to be, and that's been recent. And I will say this: Gladstone, Liam Gladstone, I believe, is the new GM, who's younger than both of us, by the way, which is amazing. Learned under Les Snead, and the Rams were never predictable, right? So I don't know if he's doing a good job of releasing bad information. Maybe he's trying to force a Mitchell Trubisky sort of situation, Solomon Thomas trade, where he wants them to come up one spot. Can I get something from the Raiders, who seem to be very tied to Genty? Or it could be
that's out of character.
Or it could be Liam Cohen, who was hired. They fired Trent Baalke's. I would say if you look at his track record, not the best GM.
Nope. I'd agree.
But they wanted Liam Cohen for a long time. They fired that GM because he wouldn't take him with Baalke being in the building. That would assume to me or suggest to me that Liam Cohen might have a little more sway even than Gladstone.
He's the leader. This is one of the things that coaches leading the way. The GM is not.
So do you want in that Tampa Bay offense, a lot of tight end usage, right? Do you want a Tyler Warren coming in here at this point? Like, on a skill position like that? If it's me, I'm taking Mason Graham, in my opinion. You have two defensive end in Josh Hines-Allen and Trayvon Walker. You spent a ton of money and a ton of draft capital in them for them not to be as good. The defensive tackle in the middle, you played, Roy Robert Harris and Amik Armstead just didn't make the impact you were hoping them to do in the middle of the field. They were also the worst pass defense in the league last year, and a lot of that was because they were not able to get pressure on the quarterback. Even with those two defensive ends, even with them having 18 and 10 sacks respectively, there was no interior pressure. You would just step up in the pocket and throw against them. Graham would fix that. Graham was top 15 in the country in sack rate, pressure rate, especially from the A and C gap. He was top 10 percentile against quality offenses and for tackle for losses against the run. He's a little bit light at 275. And they were 20, again, without the pass defense, they were 29th against the run. If I'm trying to fix what I have in Jacksonville, man, there's so many good running backs in this class. I don't think you force Genty here.
Yeah.
I would go Mason Graham, but again, things that I am hearing tell me that's going to be Genty.
I understand that. I don't want either player to go to Jacksonville because I fucking hate those fucking marks down in Jacksonville.
Sure.
Tony Khan, you're a fucking mark. I hope you're watching this one day and you can see me say, you're a fucking mark, piece of trash. And that's why the Jacksonville Jaguars will never win a championship, which is why I don't want Mason Graham or Ashton Genty to go there.
Fair enough.
Take, I don't know, fucking Michael Williams or some shit. I don't know. Figure it out. But don't pick the people that we actually want you to.
So before you go, I'm going to throw a little bit of a boomerang in this here. So this is my only trade. And I have the Chicago Bears coming up here to get Ashton Genty in
from Jacksonville.
At 6.
At 6 from the Raiders.
So okay. I know the Raiders have been tied to Genty for a while, and I know they feel like they need to make an impact.
I think that's smoke screen.
I think Ben Johnson being as a Detroit native a Detroit process where you have these two-headed backs, you have this great offensive line. They already invested a ton of money in offensive linemen. You have Caleb Williams, who again, is much, in my opinion, much better than Jared Goff. Has obviously much more tools than Jared Goff. But needs a little bit of help maybe from the backfield. DeAndre Swift did not look the part. He looks cuttable at this point, even if he's not. He's a spell.
He played well last year, but he doesn't play well enough that you're like, oh, we got to keep it's Swift or nothing.
Yeah,
it's not how it works.
And we'll get to the Raiders in a minute. I don't know if you want me to go. We can jump from 6 to 10, which is the only trade I have. But like, the Raiders have so many holes, and you need picks if you're, in my opinion.
So let's stick on Vegas quick, and then we'll take care of the trade. Schrager and Jeremiah both have tackles. They flip who they're going with. Jeremiah has Calvin Banks Jr. out of Texas,
who's been climbing up boards unbelievably.
And then Peter Schrager has Armin Membu, tackle out of Missouri, your number one tackle. Kiper and Yates have Ashton Genty. Nothing about Pete Carroll, John Spytek, or Tom Brady tells me we want a running back at 6.
100%
Pete Carroll is, I want to stock up on edge players as much as possible. He's questionable at judging them in the last 10 years.
Yeah,
I want to say that. I'm a big Pete Carroll fan, but it's the truth. However, Pete is I want to load up, especially in the defensive trenches as much as possible. That doesn't scream running back. Just have John Spytek, came from Tampa. His big thing was, we're going to get Bucky Irvin, and we're going to get all these guys that are coming out of the 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round, even deep, and they're going to become stars. He doesn't want to pay back the way this is happening. And Tom Brady never had a premier running back. Ever.
Or I'd fight you on Corey Dillon 04 a little bit, but sure.
But he was a retread from Cincinnati. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, I think Corey Dillon, he definitely had a spectacular year. But it wasn't like, we're getting Corey Dillon. It was like, well, I guess we got Corey Dillon. And then it worked out really well, like a lot of Patriots in that era. All 3 of those major components that just joined that team, none of that screams running back.
I agree.
I think that is
agree more.
Textbook people who know what they're doing, just being like, Genty, and then people being like, well, if we want Genty, we got to go.
Come up. Absolutely.
And there's Mason Graham is the one that's for me here.
Yeah.
Because I just think, okay, what is the one strength that team has? It's Max Crosby. That's it.
Christian Wilkins, good player too.
Yes, and Christian Wilkins is a great. I always love Christian Wilkins, especially power. But nonetheless, those are the only 2 strengths of that team. I'd rather just double down on the strength than if you're going to stick and pick.
Sure.
And he's available. If you have to stick and pick, do it. Because I don't think there's a receiver that's worthwhile, and they need a playmaker to at least give Geno some help.
Yeah. Brock Bowers going to get 190 targets.
Yeah, and I think the two of the best receiver prospects right now. Hi, Queso. This
is our first guest of the pod.
First guest is Queso. Just got Brock Bowers. You don't need Tyler Warren. You don't need Colston Loveland either. So, what do you really do? A trade back is the best fit.
Yeah, and that's why I did it. So to stay, you want me to stay on Vegas for a second and then circle back?
Yeah.
Okay. So, 100% agree. Love the Mason Graham if you're going to stick. If you're going to trade, like I said, so for me, can you name? So they trade. Nate Hobbs is gone. They cut Jack Jones.
Can you Packer now?
Can you name a starting quarter on the Raiders right now?
I don't know if I can. Any defender they have except the 2 I already named.
Yeah. So as a Giants fan, their number 1 corner right now is Darnay Holmes.
That's bad.
That's really bad. He will only get you defensive holding penalties. So their 3 starters at the cornerback position right now are Janory Benton. I don't know if you know who that is.
Nope.
I didn't either until I looked it up. DeMarcus Richardson and Darnay Holmes are the 3 starting corners. You cannot go into the season doing it. It is unacceptable.
Not in a Pete Carroll
it
defense.
Is unbelievably bad. So I have them trading back to 10, picking up some extra picks, and taking Will Johnson out of Michigan at 10.
Okay.
Back half of 2024 was a little rough. I'm not going to sit there and lie. I do think that he, once the season was out of hand, gave up a little bit. But he was the best player on that national championship defense. He would have been a top 3 pick coming out that year. The front half pre-injury, I think, was, again, he was a little banged up back half, is some pretty good tape as you're coming through. He wins that game for them with a pick 6, I want to say, against Toledo, and off the top of my head, but had some really good press man, great zone corner, knows how to use his size, knows how to use the sideline to his advantage, can play outside, can play inside if you're going to let him jam. There is some concerns about the long speed. I think he ran 4.56, which is not where you want to be corner-wise.
And it was at a friend. today as well, so
100%.
slower.
So get that, but you need a corner, and in my opinion, this is the best one you have on the board. Again, trading back, and again, I'm assuming you're picking up probably next year's 1 and maybe a 4 next year. I think the Raiders just need so much help with them, but the cornerback position specifically is the worst position, I would say, of any in the NFL. So that's why I have them coming back.
That's brutal.
Making that.
I'm not wrong, though. I think that would be a...
Yeah.
You imagine going from Legion of Boom
to that.
And say what you will, it out obviously with Adams and a lot of other guys that they... But Pete and John Schneider were just constantly bringing another secondary. Secondary. Devin Witherspoon worked out really well.
Fantastic pick.
Tyreek Woolen worked awesome out really well for them at the end of Pete's tenure in Seattle.
Dusseldorf.
Going back to our expansion draft, baby.
Yep,
Go check it out. It's in the archives. But a Pete Carroll secondary, not even a functioning corner, it's just hurting. It's just hurtful. It's truly hurtful. Especially you want to go up against Sean Payton offense.
Yeah.
Justin Herbert, if he gets a receiver, or I don't know. And Patrick Mahomes. Just want to go up with that secondary.
You're in trouble.
Why'd you even keep Max Crosby?
Yeah.
Just trade him. That's what it's gonna be.
Yeah. So for me, so
take the trade to 10.
Yeah, and again, going back to 6, again, Ben Johnson, probably the most creative play caller we've seen in the last decade, I would argue. Maybe McVay's a little bit, but knows how to get the most out of each player. Genty is I would say, from the line of scrimmage to the 20-yard gain, the most productive back we've seen since Saquon Barkley. He does not have Saquon's final gear. That's the only limitation to his game, is he does not pull away.
I would agree.
The way that, even Omar, even the way that Hampton pulls at the end of those games. But, and you watch that Penn State game, they're putting 11 guys in the box, and he's still putting up 96 percentile in contact balance. And that's the thing I think he does the best. He's got some good mid-range speed.
He does not avoid contact either.
No.
He'll take it.
He will take it, and he can play through it. His contact balance is some of the best I've ever seen. He also accounted for almost 13% of his team's receiving total. So he can play him out of the backfield. He can do those things like that, which I know Ben Johnson's going to want to do. He was also in the top 10% on the country in explosive run rate, despite and also 30% of his carries he forced at least one missed tackle. Despite us being hey, he's a bruiser, he does have the ability to be a little elusive in the game. So I think in Chicago, with Williams, with the rebuild offensive line, with Roma Duze, with DJ Moore, man, that really completes that offense. That's why I think the Bears are going to come up a little bit for my 4th best player in this class.
Genty, Graham, and a guy that we're about to talk about, Schrager 7th pick, are the 3 guys that I'd be I think they're between. It's 7. Peter Schrager has the New York Jets taking tight end Tyler Warren out of Penn State.
Yeah.
Then we have Yates and Kiper and Jeremiah both offensive tackle. So already stated. Tyler Warren is that guy for me that I'm if force me to just take BA this ether zone, kind of a choice, I'll be taking Tyler Warren because I'm not really getting a pure tight end. I'm getting, when I watch him, I see the exact same. It's not they don't the exact same way, but it's the same. Just make yards out of a 6-yard gain, like Travis Kelce 4 years ago when he was still moving properly. Where Travis would take a 6-yard dig, and you just be how did he just make that 17? Tyler Warren does that and makes it 20. I don't understand his at the time because I'm just how did you do? The dream scenario for someone who wants Patrick Mahomes players is him to slip to the teens and Kansas City's just we're taking him.
We're just gonna do it.
We're just gonna do it. We don't care. We'll trade up and do it.
I mean, sorry guys.
Jets here. Do you just have to go tackle though?
Man, I think it's if with the regime that you have with Aaron Glenn taking over, Detroit background, I think they will. I think I also, in my opinion, I have Membu obviously going at 7. He's my best tackle. Man, being 340 pounds and having a 1.6 10-yard split, which is better than some of the receivers at that movement skills, is unbelievable. Great hands, great feet. So the best, I have 2. I've been doing this, obviously not professionally, but I've been scouting players since 2007. Two best tackles I ever scouted were Penny Sewell and Tristan Wirfs. They got the same grade for me coming out. Penny Sewell, I think if he had played during COVID, would have been higher, but just not having that year, being 19, a little conservative. The way that Membu moves in the screen game, is like Tristan Wirfs. He can lead. He understands spacing. He understands where his body should be. He can dig people out. He is a mauler in the run game, but he also has great feet in the pass game. You see the kick step is so good. Doesn't flash both hands, and he's still so young. He's just turned 21. He's got so much to learn still. And it's hard for me to pass on Membu. Again, he had a 1.8 pressure allowed rate. Again, in the SEC, led the SEC in pancake blocks in the screen game with 8, which is an unbelievable number. Nobody else had more than 4.
It's not like you're playing scrubs.
Dude, exactly. So he is, for me, I think he's an outlier. Tyler Warren I would say, is equally as good a player as Membu. I think positional value, I'd go Membu a little bit.
Yep.
My one concern, I don't know if you saw any of this, when he is asked, so when he was interviewed a few times, they said his favorite thing to do is block. I'm talking about Tyler Warren. They said he'd put him in line at the end, and Penn State would ask him to, quote, get the engine running and kind of set the edge. And I think he did an okay job of that.
I wasn't wowed by setting the edge.
So I don't know if you looked at the combine. 31-inch arms at 6'5" is an significantly outlier in the wrong way.
Yeah.
So I think he has a leverage problem. I think if you're going to ask him to play in line, I think you're going to struggle. I think you have to play him a little bit like he's not Brock Bowers. He's not the mover. He doesn't have the hands. He does not have the wiggle. He does not have the route tree that Brock Bowers had. But I think you do have to use him in a similar sense to, hey, give me some space. And I do think after he catches the ball, there is some of that big body elusiveness that he moves better that somebody at his size should.
Yes.
So again, I would go Membu. Can't fight you on more.
Let's go to your wife's favorite. Number 8, Carolina Panthers. This is everyone doesn't know what to make of it. Everyone's just saying Jalen Walker.
Yeah, that's what I have too.
And then Jeremiah has Graham Fall.
Which would be an unbelievable pick.
It would be phenomenal.
Yeah.
Derek Brown and Mason Graham.
My God. Middle. It would be like the Chris Jenkins, Julius Peppers days coming in there. Right there.
That's perfect though for them if that happens. I don't know. Hype whatsoever. What I'm hearing is I'm hearing a lot of the classic came in, he was like a defensive coordinator. I'm like, that's great, but he still needs to be able to play at an NFL level. A lot of the times I'm seeing him. Admittedly, my tape evaluations were very slight compared to what I got to watch maybe 5 minutes everyone's comparison to usually I'm devoted 30 minutes of straight game time where I'm cutting up 6-minute splices of plays to see it. But seeing this impact player or making, I think he can be a very solid player.
Yeah.
But what is this whole thing of why Jalen Walker is this guy?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I agree a lot with things you're saying. And the other thing I've heard, again, with a lot of these well-connected people, is that he's not going to be there at 8. I hear he's going to go earlier than 8. And I have Walker going to the Panthers at 8. The comp that I keep seeing is, well, just for context here, the Panthers already spent almost $140 million on their defense this year. They
needed to.
They signed Pat Jones. They signed Trevor Mooring. They signed Brandon III, Trayshawn Walking. You still got to sign it because Xavier Woods and Jordan Fuller left. You could take a safety here. I don't think there's a safety that's like really worth it. Like that would be talk about Starks, maybe, but I don't think that's something you want to do. Panthers were last in the NFL in pressure rate. They got 25.5% of their snaps. There was any quarterback pressure.
Yeah.
But again, you watch the film. The only thing I can give him is that it's clear that they wanted him to play the run first. And
he's a great run player.
Yes, and I think that's what George is asking him to do. I'm not in the defensive meetings. I don't know, so I don't know that he's being asked to rush the passer the way that maybe he's capable of. Yes. But even when he was 9% pressure rate, man, that's not great. And then 8.1% pressure rate against quality opponents is in the 40th low percentile. So 60% of these class is better than him coming out. I get the comp that I actually saw that I thought made sense was former Panther Frankie Louvu, 5th round pick. I know the tools are much different, and again, the thing is it's projection, right? You're projecting these tools. These Georgia players know what they're doing. They're being asked to play the run instead of rush the passer. I agree.
Half of them spike and half. these Georgia players. Half of them you're like, from Georgia, and you're like, great. And then half the other guys you're like, they're from Georgia. Holy shit, they're amazing. You know, like it's just how it goes. Though.
So again, if Graham were to slip here, I think that's the right pick. I would argue I would probably take Warren here if I was like, man, I really need to make an impact.
I would go offense. If I'm stuck in this position, I'm taking one of the tight ends. Give Bryce Young something short that can something.
So yeah, and I would also, again, we're saying I'm in Dan Morgan's shoes. I don't know if you saw, Kay Adams did a fantastic job, kind of pinning the head coach of the Panthers a little bit in terms of, hey, what are you going to do? And they had this back and forth for, I would say, 15 minutes. I don't want to say, and then by the end of it, he's just like, well, we definitely need to improve on the defense side of the ball, and then they signed off. So clearly seems that it's going to be a defensive player. Dave Canales is what they want to do, but again, I would also agree with you in that. Like, I on tape in terms of what he is asked to do, he's very good at what he's asked to do. If you're projecting, hey, he can do the things I ask him to do, could be a very strong edge player. Clearly can hold up against the run. Clearly knows how to stack and shed. Clearly knows how to play with power. You know, there's some good pieces where he turns power to speed. Can he do it all the time? That's your projection.
Let's go to chaos.
In New Orleans, baby.
New Orleans Saints at 9. We have Schrager taking Michael Williams. We have Kiper and Gates going Shedeur Sanders. Finally, I say
finally
quotations
at 9.
And Jeremiah's got Michael Williams. I think I don't think. First of all, every podcast we've ever done together and every conversation we've ever had since how the fuck are the Saints still doing what they're doing?
They should teach a class in cap management because I don't know. It is impossible what they're doing.
I'm not lying. The first time I met Brandon, it went to, hey, I heard you do a football blog. Yeah, what are your quarterback rankings? And then, the fuck are the Saints doing? I don't know, man. And that's how we became friends. Because
Absolutely.
we're just like, what the fuck are they doing?
Yeah.
What the fuck are they going to do?
I don't know, man.
What would you do here? Clearly, we're seeing edge and a quarterback.
So the Ryan Ramczyk retirement, I do think throws a little bit of an interesting edge into it, right?
Yes.
The fact that you have a 3-time Pro Bowler, who I don't think the knee was going to be ready anyway, based on what we're hearing.
He will be in attendance at the draft as a Wisconsin.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Man, but again, like you recommit to Derek Carr, who like may or may not be faking a shoulder, which is like I'd love to dig into that. I don't have the info for it, but like
of all the people,
because he's fully guaranteed this year. I think it's 48 million, something like that. Man, like you would love a tackle here.
This is a bank spot.
For me, this is Tet because this is me. I'm pretending I'm Mickey Loomis. How do I do the thing I want to do right now? I'm not saying this is my ideal position.
Yes.
But I have Tet coming in here, and this is also in the same breath of the Saints always do. Peyton Turner was not somebody. Marcus Davenport was not somebody you thought was going to go in the first round. The Saints are always a little bit funky in what they want to do, and
they have no rhyme or rhythm ever.
And they're willing to listen to their own people. So Tet, man, I know we talked about this off mic, but Todd McShay, somebody, whether you love him or hate him, has been in the game a long time and seen a lot of people.
He's a good evaluator. You have to.
Has him as the 50th ranked player for Tet. And like that's for me too much. But the consistent things I'm hearing is that he doesn't like to work. He doesn't want to put the film in. He doesn't want to lift a lot of weights. And like he needs to be constantly on top of these people. I'm not saying the Saints can't do it.
Sounds a little bit like your jersey.
Exactly. Yeah, it sounds a little bit like that Jamarcus Russell thing, which is not the comp you want. But man, like ran 4.5, 6'4", 220, has a volleyball background with that body control. We talked about Travis Hunter being able to high point the ball. He can clearly high point the ball. When he's motivated, go watch the film against Travis Hunter. He had a good game against him. He can win when he wants to win.
Doesn't happen often.
But the thing is, you have to know that you're going to be able to keep him on schedule. And man, I don't know if the French Quarter is where you want that. So
the French Quarter or on that.
Sure. Yeah.
If this is a normal draft class, not a weaker draft class at the top, because everyone's saying this is a deep class when you get 2 and 3. I loved Chris Sims with his evaluation. He's like, I swear I wrote down 35 to 50 100 times this year.
Yeah. But I'm not listening to anything Chris Sims says. But
I know, but I know you're not a Chris Sims guy. He's hit or miss, as are my shit. So that's why.
Are we all? Are we all?
But it's one of those where if that kind of player, doesn't matter if it's receiver, quarterback, anybody. Hey, we're not sure he's gonna work. You're like, that's not top 10. That's you just go.
And by work, you mean just ethic, not necessarily as a player.
Yes.
Yeah. And you know, it's hard, and like I wish I was in the interview with the kid because like a lot of I don't know if there was a clip. There was a clip also of like somebody ambushed him and like they talked about how much film he watched and he was like, I don't watch any film. Lunchroom, and that's lunchroom. I don't know if that's real, but
also wasn't that like a couple of years ago when he was like a freshman?
Yeah. So I don't know what that is, but I mean, there's clearly ability. There's clearly he was so dominant in his position.
Yeah.
You know, there's a chance. I think the Mike Evans comp is way too much.
Yeah. Just because he has the size doesn't mean he's going to be.
I even think the Drake London's a little bit too much. You know, I'm thinking more of a Ramses Barden kind of comp, which is a deep cutback for the Giants.
Very much so. Very much so.
You know, in terms that's maybe a little too much. But you know, the other thing is the NFL. I think is a little wary of the big bodied wide receivers. They don't come in and play the way you expect them to. They move tight end. It just does not become a thing. So Tet, I do think I'm believing him a little bit here as Mickey Loomis because I am desperate and I have these little small guys who can run with Brandon Cooks and things like that, or they're in their late 30s or early 30s, excuse me.
Well, you have Chris Olave that just gets injured because it's Chris Olave getting the ball at all times with no problem.
And just getting destroyed. Yeah, so he just picked up his fifth-year option today. So, but I think
wise decision.
I think Ted's a good balance there.
Now, 10 is an interesting one for a lot of guys. We got Jeremiah taking Tyler Warren.
So, again, for 10, we already made this trade. I don't know if we want to...
Yeah, Kiper, we have Tyler Warren, and then we have the Colts coming up in Schrager's draft, and the Bears going back, and have Colston Loveland at tight end there, because Tyler Warren would already be off the board. Yeah. Quick on Loveland. I love his... He does not have the exact same speed, but I think he's a better blocker.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate just all-around tight end experience that you can get, but he also has the extreme receiving threat.
Yeah.
He's not just a tight end that can block and catch some passes. This is a first.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
I agree. And again, as what I'm hearing today, he's climbing up boards. There's a chance he's not going to get outside the top 15. Big body guy, much better blocker, much more, I would argue, willing blocker. Willing to, and can, you watch some of these seam passes, some of these posts.
Yeah.
They're at his toes, they're at over his head. He's one to pick the ball up off the ground. He's one to expose his body for an high catch and take a shot to the ribs.
Yeah.
All the things John Harbaugh wants to get at 22, hint, hint.
His own player from Michigan.
Exactly.
Who would have thought?
So heck of a player. Have no problems with that. Again, we already talked a little bit. We already have made this trade a little bit. If they were to stay, Cole Kmet, I don't think prevents them from taking a tight end.
Yeah.
I think there's a chance. Again, I've heard Kelvin Banks here. I've heard they want to improve the offensive line a little bit, but again, I've already talked a little bit. Linger on that too long.
And we're gonna start doing a little speed run here.
Yeah.
We got 11 through 15 here. A lot of teams that did not think they were going to be in these positions. San Francisco. Schrager's got Walter Nolan. Right, that's big one. We have Banks Jr. going by Kiper Gates, and we have Gray Zabel out of North State from 49ers. Quick, where are you going? This is just a team that needs to
Yeah, and it's unbelievable. You think a couple years ago, we were talking 2 years ago, this is the best roster in the NFL. And now they're...
Even last year, people were going, it's still pretty...
Yeah, I'm taking Shamar Stewart here. I think this is a team that I know they brought Robert Saleh back, who likes to have that big pressure, likes to win early. One with Alden Smith, one with, invested in defensive line early. The motor on Stewart is unbelievable. The best tape I think I've seen of any defense, including Abdul Carter. Go watch the Missouri tape, and man, they're up 30 points, and he is running receivers down. He's running backs down. 280. almost 280 pounds, had a 1.58, 40-yard split, which is faster than almost every receiver that ran this year except for Golden. Unbelievable leverage. The only thing, 15%, top 15% pressure rate. That's quality offenses. Just an unbelievable player. One thing, and I don't know that I can quantify it, is there are times where it feels like he doesn't know where the ball is. And, I mean that as nicely as I can. but like if you watch, for example, like Micah Parsons, I know it's not fair. Micah Parsons, whether he's got 3 people on him or 1, he has a sort of innate ability to sort of like know where he is.
Yes.
And the ball is going. Stewart does not have that. And I don't know if that's a teachable thing, but if it is, Saleh can get it out of him. And man, the intangibles, the effort.
If someone's going to teach him, it's going to be Robert Saleh.
It's going to be Saleh. Yeah.
Say what you will about Robert Saleh and his tenure at Jets.
Yeah,
the defensive line always looked
was
good.
Awesome. Yeah. So Stewart for me, they need pass rush. They need to be able to get that. There's no corner here worth taking, so that's where I'm going.
Dallas, your favorite team ever.
Favorite team ever. Hit them in Philly.
Fuck Dallas. America's a better country than the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, so
that's the two.
So for me, this is pretty easy. It's got to be a receiver, and with Ted off the board for me, it's got to be Golden. Who scares you on that offense right now besides CD? Who's a quality option besides him? Yeah,
nobody.
I mean, you're looking at Turpin.
CD doesn't even scare me because I don't think there's a reliable. I say that because of this. CD Lamb's obviously very. I can't trust that they're going to have their quarterback for more to actually get CD Lamb.
And I'd argue that CD Lamb's the 3rd best receiver in the NFC East.
Ooh.
Behind AJ Brown and Malik.
Neighbors is a projection at this point. I could see it happening.
I don't think so. We can talk about that in a minute. I don't want to get too off topic.
But AJ Brown's an obvious. Yeah, of course. Yeah. AJ Brown's better than CD Lamb.
But Jake Ferguson, Turpin, Javonte Williams aren't doing much for them. Golden runs the fastest 40. The thing I thought was really interesting about it was that Texas didn't use him that way. Right? He was like a crosser, an out guy. He actually, his highest percentage of route runs were outs. So he was somebody they trusted to win. Or with route running, with a little bit with speed on drags and things like that, but wasn't used to just take the top off defenses.
Which is insane because when he did take deep shots, he always won.
Yeah. He
always won.
I am so sad by Quinn Ewers' tape. I wanted to like him, and he's so bad. Because Golden made him right a lot when they did take those deep shots.
Yes.
So good player, plays through contact, especially for his size. If you're going to be that light and that fast, you got to be able to play through contact. Doesn't really work.
Yeah, no, I mean, Traeger's got Tyler Booker hard. Everyone else is going receiver.
Really high for me.
Everyone else has.
I don't hate it, especially with the Zach Martin retirement, but like Booker at that point is way too high for me. I mean, take Banks instead and just let him play inside.
Well, that's the thing is I don't understand. I want the Rich Eisen chaos model, where Dallas trades up to 2, just for the chaos. And finally, Dallas would be Dallas again.
And then they signed Deion Sanders as the coach.
That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome.
That'd be something.
I mean, here's the thing. For podcast material, I think the Far Off Football podcast will be coming back on a daily basis.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But
for sure.
Everyone's saying it. I don't understand the guard here because I understand you need to lose Zach Martin. It's a Hall of Fame play.
Yeah.
Like you said, no one even remotely makes you stutter. Beyond scares you. There's not a single player on that offense besides CeeDee Lamb where you just go, well, he could be a problem. Turpin's a phenomenal kick returner, but Turpin's not a receiver.
Burns is an okay tight end. There's nothing special there.
There's nothing special there. I think those are 2 pieces that could, if there was us a running back here. I mean, the dream here is to get a good receiver in a game-changing running second round. Tyler Booker. I understand that. Yeah. Miami. I don't understand anything about. Traeger has Mason Graham falling all the way. I can't see that. I can't see that happening. But Traeger's plugged in. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
And then we got Kiper taking Will Johnson at the corner position. And then we have a Denver trade up for Colston Loveland with Miami.
That's interesting. Who has that one?
Jeremiah.
Wow. Okay. And he's usually pretty plugged in, too.
Yes.
I love all those. I don't have any of those things happening. I have them taking Kelvin Banks Jr. I think, again, with everything I've heard, everything I've seen, I think 13 is his floor. Okay. You start over 40 games with Texas. He was one of those guys
holds
that holds up really well. It was better. I will say it's better last year than this year, but still, only allowed 2% pressure rate, 1.5% pressure rate when stunted or blitzed at, which is top 10 percentile in college football. Mm-hmm. The other thing, man, right now is the Tua contract is starting to hurt. Right, like they're moving on from Jalen Ramsey. You lost Christian Wilkins because you couldn't keep him. You lost Von Holland to the Giants because you couldn't. There are now pieces of this that, okay, hey, we're paying quarterback big money. Quarterback's got to play like he's big money. And, we don't have the time for me to go into what I think about Tua. but it seems.
Do you want my take again?
It certainly seems like he's not going to be able to carry the load of spec. And there's rumors from, again, what I've seen in the last 4 or 5 hours that there's already an agreement in place to move Tyreek Hill. And it seems to be that's going to be either a Rams, Giants, or Jets trade at draft time. And that's hyperbole. That's rumor. That's what I've seen from
to the Jets in that chisel. If they're just like, fuck, send them over.
Because they're trying to shed cap space. Now, obviously, the big thing is Armstead's retirement, right?
Yes.
Like that's the big one. Not you don't have Patrick Paul, second round pick last year, waiting in the rings. You know nothing about him. But taking Banks here secures an extra spot if you got to play one at tackle, one at guard. Again, good player, stability helped kind of revitalize that Texas swagger, so to speak, for football.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think Miami needs that because Tua is not the leader.
There's a part of Banks' game that I like the most out of. He's the only one just feel true level.
Yeah.
Membu
plays right anyway.
He plays right tackle, and I think he has the athleticism to switch over.
Oh, for sure.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But there is that inexperience there where you're just like, he's still developing. Banks is the only one that still brings both the toughness and the fluid. When I watch Campbell, I see what's so funny is all of his quotes are all, mean, tough guy. When he plays, he doesn't play mean and tough. He plays very smooth. Would let the game to me, which is so odd for someone who's quote unquote super aggressive.
Yeah.
Membu again, I think is of the three probably best, but there's some inexperience there.
Yeah.
Where Banks just has I trust this guy somehow.
Yeah.
Don't know why, but there's that innate trust that I got the same thing out of your guy Andrew Thomas when you told me I was crazy for liking Andrew Thomas.
Yeah.
Where I was just like, no.
Well, he's hurt all the time. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I know, but it's just one of those that when he does play, he's pretty damn good for your team, you know. So, it's interesting. Speaking of Calvin Banks, we have the trade back from. We had the Colts coming up for 10 for Colts and 11 in Strager's draft. 14, he has the Bears going that trade for Calvin Banks. We have the Colts. Pretty much everyone has. Okay, we got 2 Colston Lovelands, and we have a Shamar Stewart.
Nice. Yeah.
What do you do with Colts?
So at this point, I don't know if you noticed, Tyler Warren's still on my board at this point, which I don't think is going to happen. Again, This is playing me. How do I do it? But like, the Chris Ballard is having the drunkest orgasm he's ever had. As somebody who just
asking people about frogs.
Exactly. So we've already talked a little bit how he was the number one option on a playoff team, made it over a 30% target share at tight end. That's almost impossible to do. An elite player at the college level. So for the Colts, last time a player had at least 800 yards for the Colts at the tight end position. Name the player and the year. Dallas Clark is correct. What year?
Say
2009. Very close. Damn. That was very impressive. That's a great. So the last time a Colts player had 800 yards at the tight end position was Dallas Clark in 2009. Since then, you've had Jacob Tamme, Colby Fleener, Jack Doyle, and Eric Ebron had over 600 yards. So we're not even within like an order of magnitude from that. And the most recent for that was 2018. So we're talking about they have not had production from that position in a long, long time. I don't know what the quarterback position is going to be. I would love to do
2 of your boys.
2 of my boys. And by 2 of my boys, I mean, man, I do believe in Anthony Richardson still. He's only played 35 games. He needs time. He needs help.
This is his put up or shut up.
It is. If Daniel Jones beats you out, you cannot be in the league anymore. That is just part of the rules. You got to go. But anyway,
you just gotta go out to San Francisco, sit for a year,
Yep.
or go to Kansas City and sit for a year and just learn.
It's years, yeah.
My issue is I don't know if he wants to learn.
I don't know if he does either. And he seems like a good person. He's very talented. I would have loved to just trade Daniel Jones for Anthony Richardson straight up if they really wanted him, but that's just me. But yeah, Tyler Warren here is an absolute steal. I don't think this is going to happen. I think he goes before this, but in terms of the way my board breaks,
they're trading up for.
Yeah, I agree.
15. So I will say this: I'm looking at an E1 of 5 teams. I have no idea.
Yeah.
15 Atlanta. Quickly, I'm seeing Jihad Campbell, I'm seeing Mike Green out of Marshall. I'm seeing Jalen Walker from Jeremiah's draft, which I think is the way people are talking about Walker is wild. I would agree more with Jeremiah's take.
Yeah, I agree too.
I have no idea.
Yeah. So for me, I don't think this is hard. I think you take whatever pass rushers there. I do have it being Mike Green out of Marshall. Atlanta was 34st in pressure rate last year, 28%, and over the last 4 years they were 25th, 30th, and 32nd before. They have, in my opinion, Vic Beasley had that 1 year for them, but they haven't had a really end since John Abraham. In terms of
everybody says it because it's just
it's unbelievable. They can't do anything, and they didn't re-sign Matthew Judon. They have nothing right now to even lean their hat on a little bit, and Grady Jarrett's gone in terms of the interior of that defense. So they need so much defensive line help. Mike Green's the best one I got left. Was in the top 5 percentile with pressure rate at almost 17%, and then against quality opponents, it was almost 20%. So obviously played better at the best levels. Easy pick for me in terms of best end left.
Gotcha. All right, 16 Arizona. That's the ultimate. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, they have a lot of starters. I would say if you line them up,
Jahdae Barron a lot.
That's what I have for them too. Jahdae Barron, I think makes sense. Playing opposite. You had
However,
Sean. Oh, what did Jeremiah have? That's not a bad pick.
To pair him with Marvin Harrison Jr. and just take, hey, what's the best Ohio State wide receiver room?
Yeah.
And let's just take half of it and put it over here.
Yeah.
I love that idea.
Yeah. But I think they need help again. One thing was Murphy Bunton was okay. Sterling Thomas IV was bad. You need somebody outside of our friends, the Meltons, that we met.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think you can play Barron at safety. You can play him inside, outside. You use him flexibility there. Obviously, Mike Gannon being a defensive-minded head coach makes some sense.
All right, 17, Cincinnati. Bager, I'm seeing Walter Nolan, Donovan. Everyone's saying it's going to be edge of some kind or on those trenches. I think that's simply no one believes Trey Hendrickson's still going to be there. To me, I think this is a logical something.
Yeah,
it's logical. And
yeah. So for me, again, being a little more logical, I did go Michael Williams here from Georgia, playing that tweener role. That whole defense needs help. Dak, outside of Dak Hill, who again didn't play after week 5, tore his ACL.
Yeah.
Mike Hilton's not signed. Britt Taylor's not signed. Really bad in 24. DJ Turner, was okay. BJ Hill got hurt. They just, there's no consistency at any level of that defense. We already talked about their best player being traded. Hendrickson maybe not be re-signed. I do know Mikael Williams, again, did not play the way we'd expect him to. Still had a great percentage of run
Georgia,
stops.
I don't know what they're
But he played with a torn pec the entire year. So I will give him some credit for that, and that is diagnosed. He's another one that I hear is just going to be way higher than people that we expect him to. But I think, again, especially from a body type, play style perspective, he's not Hendrickson. Obviously, Hendrickson's a phenomenal all-pro level player. But body type-wise, energy-wise, somebody who can attempt to come in and maybe replace some of that.
Sweetener. So it seems like Jair Alexander doesn't want to be a Packer anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have no issue. Yeah. I have no issue just going like, hey, can we just give you Jair in a second for Trey Hendrickson?
Sure.
Straight up. You guys get a great corner. We get a great pass rusher. Let's just call it a day. Mm-hmm. I think that's a way to make everybody in Green Bay this weekend real fucking
absolutely
happy. 18 Seattle. I'm seeing Gray Zabel from Schrager. I'm seeing Gray Zabel from Kiper and Yates. I'm seeing a trade from Jeremiah with your team, your Giants, trading back in to get Jackson Dart.
I hate that. So
I knew you were going to
anyway, I have Gray.
So
I have Gray Zabel, and I know he played at a different level of competition, but again, 1.8% pressure allowed, 1% under 1%. Pressure rate allowed when blitzers stunted against, which is the best of any player in college football. Yeah. Obviously played left tackle at North Dakota State, but it's pretty clear he's going to play guard. Just does not have the feet to protect that outside shoulder. 96th percentile of rush yard before contact, which was, again, kind of 40% of the yards. He is an outstanding player at every level. Seattle needs another interior player. Very quickly on Jackson Dart, because I'm not going to talk about my favorite. I think the number is over 65% of his total production is off of zone read play action. He can only read one side of the field. He's bad at his job. He's just bad. I know we're gonna get
quote
that quote.
Came out, baby. I knew it was coming.
It is.
He's
it
bad.
is.
He's bad at his job.
It is. There's some athleticism. I get there's some arm talent.
I think there's something to work with. He's a project.
He is a day 3 player for me. He is, and I understand he get driven up because this for Jackson. You remember people were talking about Spencer Rattler going early?
Yep.
And then he fell to the 5th round. This is sort of what I feel is happening right now. I watched Jackson. There's no way.
There's a reason he was and then pulled out of
exactly. There is no way you watch this happen 70 times a game and then he only looks this way and be like, yeah, it's an NFL player. That's a player that we can start right now. It is an insane concept from there. And I get there's not a lot of options. I get, it's him. The kid from Louisville is also, I think, a nightmare to be 26 years old and do what he's doing and still. Yeah, exactly. Not be able to.
There is one other quarterback I like in this draft. As a day 2. Is it day 2 problem?
Sure.
Because there's athleticism, there's speed. I like his competition level he played at, and some variance, and I give you that. One thing I like about him is I got the same feeling, and I'm sad because I was proven right about this. The joys and curses of being a good scout sometimes. I remember when I told you, I think Jalen Hurts could be a good starter, and you're like, there's no way. I'm like, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I just say it could. Yeah. And now it's cursed us for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, nothing like completing 17 passes in Super Bowl to win.
Yep. Yeah. He gives me the same vibe that Jalen does. There's something enough there to be successful.
Yes, and I would argue that Jalen has landed in the best possible position of best offensive line this year, best running back in the NFL, top 2 wide receiving core in the NFL, best pressure rate in the NFL. You were getting everything else. Jalen Hurts was asked to make layups. Patrick Mahomes was asked to make half-court shots consistently, and they're not the same. So, yes, I would argue if you can run the exact same system and sort of what, not to get too far out of ourselves, but that with Bo Nix, which is like they ran football 101, and there was nothing overly complicated about his system. Sure, you get away with some Jackson Dart stuff, but it is a far cry from a competent read the 1 to 2 to 3 level player.
I don't like Bill Rowe. I would like him on your team in a day.
He is,
because I think he's athletic enough to do something with the team that has Jameis Winston just chucking stuff right now and Russell Wilson being trash.
yeah, I agree with that.
I think he doesn't play well enough that if you still want to be in the Arch Manning Sweet Six next year, you can still be in it. If he ran the same 40 as, let's say, Tet McMillan, I think he's a day 3. He is a low 4.4s, 220-pound athlete. As a passer, he is very, very limited. You watch him against the Michigan game, you watch him against any really high-quality opponent. He cannot get the ball where you want it to be. He has no anticipation. He has good arm strength, but things are just flying off the wall. I really struggle with him as a passer. So, and he is a quarterback first. So, struggling with him as a passer. He is. I would say this. I liked Anthony Richardson, and Anthony Richardson was very limited as a passer. Anthony Richardson was light years ahead of where Milroe was coming out. Scary. All right, let's go to 1910. I got 2 receivers by the experts and a safety. But I got Tet McMillan at 19 for Schrager, and I've got Matthew.
Which I think both make sense. But the thing is, every player from the Tampa Bay offense is returning. Every single player. It's very, very rare. So I would say you want to go.
that whole thing the last couple of years. Yeah. They just keep everyone.
Yeah. And you know what? I would say consistency, you don't need it. You had a good offense last year. Baker did some good stuff. Let's find, Levante David being 35 years old, clearly he's not the same player who was in coverage.
Yes.
I like Javai Campbell. I think there's a lot of good stuff. I know the shoulder scares some people, but man, you watch him play through the mud, you let him stack and shed, you let him run through the muck at stretch zones or zone reads. He's able to pick up on offensive lineman keys so well. Led the nation in single tackles in this position with 90. A hell of a player, consistent tackle. If you can get through the shoulder injury, I think this is a steal at 19. Should be a top 10 player on the board.
20. Denver's an interest. Everyone wants to do.
Yep.
Rager's got Emeka Ibuka, wide receiver, State. I've got Omarion Hampton running back, Piper, and then trade back because they were in the Dolphin Jeremiah's draft. Malachi Starks, safety.
Interesting.
For I think they skill player. I think we just got into Bo Nix a little bit. We don't need to do done a lot of Nix before.
Yeah.
Bo Nix is limited. I don't believe anyone who's trying to tell you right now that Bo Nix is going to take this next step and back, in both our opinions, is because it's very limited in what he can do. What he is good at is what old school guys like: leader, be fiery.
Yep.
No one's taking that away from him. But eventually, you got to be able to just throw this missile, as the Sims family says, and do it. He doesn't have that.
No.
So you need to surround him with as many great skill position players as possible.
Absolutely.
Cortland Sutton is not enough.
No.
I love Cortland Sutton. I've always been a defender of
Good
his,
player.
He's not enough to.
Also, I think the best comp for Ted McMillan.
So I think wide receiver is obvious, but running back is the one to talk.
Yeah, because I just don't think there's a receiver here that you really want to take. You really don't want to force here at this point. So I obviously have Hampton out of UNC going here as well. You have every offensive lineman coming back. I think Marvin Mims is going to have a bigger role outside of Cortland Sutton. I really do, even if you have this very basic offense coming out of with Bo Nix.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that stood out, as good as Genty was, you look at Sports Stats, and you look at PFF. Hampton was the 100th percentile of yards after contact, so he was better than Genty at yards after contact, which feels insane, but according to different, very, very reputable stat collectors, that's true.
My concerns with him. I have concerns with him.
I would just say the biggest difference between him is the deep speed's better. The offense is weird that he runs out of. Every handoff is just this instead of like a real sort of like, hey, I get to read the offensive lineman, come off tackle, and do the things I want to do. But for me, I have him as a top 20 player in this class. So what are your concerns?
My concerns are every big successful play that I saw. I'm seeing a whole as in big screens, things of that nature with an offensive line, classic Mac Brown, like classic style football. Just does not like the thing is this breakaway speed's there. I can't fight that. But if I'm getting a 3-yard screen every time, hole to run, most good running backs at the college level, with any speed, take that. Whereas when people are trying to say he's just as good as, that's wrong. He doesn't have the same capability on his feet to break tackles, deceleration as we talked about Genty. That's my concern. I don't think in any way he's a bad back, but see a lot of his big play. That's one of his biggest skills. I'm like, it's very manufactured to me.
Yeah, and
that's where I'm concerned about. Who's this big home run here? I'm like, on an NFL level of just you're not that big. It's just the base. It's just not gonna happen.
Yeah, I think it's interesting in terms of the offense. I think, especially some of the big runs are certainly generated. There's some initial bursts, but like watch a lot of carries where like the quarterback, the Lugongo offense is not very traditional at all. Where you're just zone read and you're just like, I'm gonna give you the best player, get the ball. Yeah. I think there are plays where he does a nice job of trying to figure some things out. I do think, to your point, I think there's an adjustment period for him where if you're going to play a traditional offense, this is going to look very different for you. I think he has the ability to still be successful there, but certainly, is not not that any player is a guarantee, but certainly some adjustment period for him. But again, I think the burst, I think the ability that he's shown, the ability to catch the ball to the backfield, I think he's going to be a good player for again, a Sean Payton-led offense. I think I will say this. I think he's closer to a Mark Ingram than he is a.
Fair. All right, let's talk about it. Fine. 21. I got 2 Shadur Sanders and 1 Derek.
I have a Derek Harmon. Who's the one that agreed with me?
Piper and Field Yates.
Okay. All right, I'll take it.
Your boy out of Baltimore eating his pumpkin pie.
Yeah, eating his filling, just the filling, not the pumpkin pie
filling.
Cam Hayward's 36. I mean, clearly he's not moving the same way he was before. while there's some pieces with Highsmith and Heiberg and Benton, they're still not the same caliber of player. And, we talked earlier in the year, we were talking about teams we liked and didn't like. We talked about how different this team is without TJ Watt. The defense is an absolute nightmare. And he's 31 and he's coming off of 3 injuries.
I think it's just a play for money, but kind of it's out.
Me too. I hope so too.
Because I want him to play for a team that might actually win a Super Bowl.
Right. Because man, he's so good. TJ Watt is better. As Shaq would say, I was unfamiliar with this game, and man, I sat down and when I did those games, I was like, holy crap, this guy can play. Should have taken that from the accolades, but you always want to trust the tape yourself. Harmon, 26.8% win rate at the A gap, far and away the best in this conference. 22.6 at the C gap, so you can move him in and out. He doesn't necessarily play inside. And again, you have a little bit of time to learn from these TJ Watts, to learn from K. Hamlin. And again, it feels like a Pittsburgh Steeler kind of pick. I also think there's some, going back to the poison well, taking a quarterback at the 20th spot. You miss with.
Anyone could have told you Kenny Pickett was a.
Right. Well, except for the Steelers, apparently. So,
like I did to every single person in the state of Pennsylvania.
Everybody who would listen to us. So I feel like they're.
We're talking to Steelers fans with you, and we're like,
yep.
That's the dumbest thing ever. What are you talking about, Kenny Pickett? That's so stupid. Why'd you do that?
Yeah, I just don't have. I don't think you can take Shador here. I know there's some, but I know.
Where do you have Shador?
As a player, or in this?
Where is he graded for?
He's like 42nd.
I think Shador is a top of the 2.
Yeah.
If the right team said, I'm going to trade up to 26 to 32 because I want the extra year contractual obligation, I'd be like,
agree.
That's fine. There are things I really like about Shador's game, but there are things I detest about Shador's game. And I did. You gave me the best piece of information or thought process I'd ever heard of. Ben, coached your entire life by one of the best players. You've had access to every great coach imaginable. This is the ceiling of which you get to based off of your physical talent. Not going to be a starting quarterback.
Right.
It's just not going to happen. Have more to add on that besides just your little wisdom there.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a ton. The biggest thing for me that jumped out was he does not know how to manage a pocket. He fades and he fades and he fades and he rolls. And people talk about being a good processor. I think he's a fine processor. He feels some things okay. He underthrows a lot of these deep balls. Travis Hunter makes him right so many times.
Matthew Golden all over again.
Absolutely. That's a really, really good comparison. I would say, to kind of like move on from Shador, again, not somebody I'm taking in the first round. Again, except for that control that you're talking about. If his name was, it's sort of the opposite of the Marvin Harrison Jr. conversation. People talked about if Marvin Harrison Jr.'s name was Marvin Williams Jr., he would still be a top receiver.
Yep.
I think if Shador Williams was his name, he would not be talked about as a top 50 player. I think the name has sort of carried him through that. Doesn't mean he's can't be successful, but like his tools are much more limited than people.
He wants to be. I feel like he wants to be Patrick Mahomes. To be
Russell Wilson. That's what I see.
It
was a 3rd round pick. I mean, and I'm by Russell Wilson, I mean college Russell Wilson, obviously.
I am frightened. Watch that last bowl.
Yeah. The
amount of times that he puts them in a terrible. I'm not even talking about that terrible position because it's just going to fade out of the pocket and make something happen. Like, you're not that athlete. You're not Lamar Jackson. Don't have the escapability of a Josh Allen or a Patrick Mahomes. Patrick's not the greatest athlete, but he's just got that weird wiggle to get out of stuff, kind of very Favre-esque, Rodgers-esque, where, I don't know, I just made it happen, right? He doesn't have any of that. He needs to play, to me, if Shador is about to be successful, I think he needs to learn what many people consider the management style of a team. Take your shots when you know they're there, to pick your spots and be He's a very accurate quarterback.
I don't
in the mid range, but I don't like him deep at all.
I think, just to wrap this up, I think the thing that you can't make that comp with was Tom Brady, with the exception of a couple times with the Giants, managed the pocket so well and knew where pressure was coming and knew how to get rid of the ball. Shador's sack to pressure rate is exceptionally high, and again, that is something that pressure to sack rate, not sack to pressure. Excuse me. That is something that is sticky. Something that do not get rid of to the NFL. It gets worse usually. So concerns there, concerns about the arm strength, concerns about just the overall player. Again, top 50 pick, fine. Top 25 pick, will get people fired.
One last point I do want.
Sure.
How much credence do you give one of, if not most offensive line? Because I will say, every single play, I'm not kidding, every single play I watched, he was under duress.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I do think that's fair. I think if given that many reps, it's going to happen, you start to, how much credit to give to Sam Darnold when he says you're seeing ghosts? You have, certainly affects you, but, have to be able to manage through some of that. You have to be able to be like, I know I'm going to get quick pressure, and maybe it's a play calling problem, right? Maybe there are issues at the play calling level where you can give some of that. But again, the answer is not always fade. There are moments where he can step up, run through the A gap, get 6 yards, and instead of that, he takes an 8-yard sack. So it is that, continue. And again, if it is, if he is broken by the pressure, we've seen a Sam Darnold. We see these, Daniel Jones. We've seen when you just get hit so many times, the Carr brothers. If he's already there, then you definitely shouldn't take him because he's not going to get over that. So if we're so worried about the way he reacts to any sort of pressure, and it's only going to get worse at the NFL level, as bad as that Colorado offense was, I'd rather not deal with it. I think is the easiest answer.
I would. That's a perfect fine kid. Let him go somewhere else.
Absolutely.
If I like him and I don't think it's going to work out with another team, I bring him second.
Yeah.
When he hits his free agency period, say, like you bring. He's a guy. Come on in and talk to you. Let's go rapid fire on these guys as much as possible. 22 Los Angeles Chargers. What the?
Colson Loveland, Michigan player. Whatever the best Michigan players left, said John Ross Fagan. We talked a little bit how good of an player is at all three levels. Can block, can catch intermediate, can catch deep. We'll trace it all. Just Harbaugh's taking whatever his favorite Michigan players left on the board. That's just who he is. End of discussion.
I will say, Traeger, Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle, Michigan.
Yeah.
And then, ironically, Kiper and Field have Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver at Ohio State. I love that pick.
I think that's.
I love that because that's a classic. He plays a Harbaugh style that I really like. I've liked Emeka Egbuka.
The only thing I had was I think he's just Lad McConkey. I just don't know the spot for him.
I think that's honestly just fill your entire offense with Lad McConkeys and say fuck it.
Sure.
Because that's all they want to do anyways.
That's fair. That's fair.
The thing is this: Emeka Egbuka, same cloth, not the same player. I want to make that very clear. I don't think he's this guy. Has the exact same thing as Olave. I know if you throw that motherfucker the ball, he'll catch it and he will do something with it in a positive manner.
Yes.
He does not break the same way Olave does, and neither of them were big flash like Garrett Wilson.
No.
But I was far more of a Chris Olave
very savvy.
guy.
Very good route runner. Absolutely.
And I know that that's a guy that I can have on my team for the next 12 years because he's just going to figure it out.
So to just sort of, again, maybe, speed this up a little bit. I have him going to 27 at the Ravens, and I think he's the guy that slid down my board.
Such a Ravens wide
Isn't
receiver.
that such a Ravens wide receiver? So we don't have to cover that too much. Everything you just said is absolutely accurate, and I think if that happens, I think he takes Zay Flowers' role and is a better version of Zay Flowers than that.
Let's talk about my team. I need to say this for
sure.
Peter Schrager, I love you. No way in hell the Green Bay Packers are taking a receiver. If they somehow pick Matthew Golden like you say, I will kiss your feet because I'll be extremely excited.
Sure.
I don't care if the draft is in Green Bay or not. It will not happen, Peter. Yes. They do not draft first-round receivers.
They just don't. I have Nick, I'm going to butcher this last name, Nick Imawari, the safety out of South Carolina. I
have an issue with that, not because of the player.
Sure, I'll talk about it in a minute. I think this sort of relies on Jair getting traded. I think he continues to fit Packers like big, physical, fast players on defense. They have a certain size requirement. Nick fits both of those. He was the star of the combine. Hits. He has a range that is the best in this class by far. I think he can come in and he can allow former Giant David McKinney to sort of really play that single high role. He can come in, he can play the slot, he can play the tight end. The thing that he does really, really well, and I think that you need in this division, he can take tight ends by himself. He can come up, play the run against Detroit. Again, if you have an Austin Gentry coming in for the Bears, you got to be able to come up and fill those gaps. I think he can do both of those things. Heck of a player, and I think this is a great steal, I would say, at this position. And I think he really, really helps your defense. And again, if you lose a Pro Bowl, All-Pro level corner, I think he helps you on the back end now.
I love the idea of it, and I'm also just always safety. Took 3 of them last year and signed David McKinney.
Yeah, for sure.
And Evan Williams is a very good player with David McKinney.
Sure.
There. I want to make that very
sure.
I like what I saw with Evan Williams. That defense was very different in the back half of the season. They were starting to look desperate, and he was not playing. Let me say, especially in attendance for some of those games, I was like, really miss Evan Williams right now. Really miss it.
Yep.
Some of those other guys like Napo and now in the other safety position last year as well. I would love. Okay, we have corners. Let's just overload them with good athletic safeties and talk them up that way.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
That's. I'm taking the approach that you guys take the wide receiver to defensive back, which seems to be what you're doing anyway. So.
Yes. Piper, I would love you if you were right on this one. Shamar.
Oh, if he makes it that far, he certainly got a shot. I don't know that he fits the Packers builds requirements. They like those Sean Gary big.
Yes.
I don't know if they're there, but sure.
24 Minnesota. I'm seeing Marion Hampton. I'm seeing Donovan Jackson, the State. I'm seeing Darwin.
Yeah, I got Maxwell Harrison here. They lost Stephon Gilmore and Chicago Griffin. They lost 1,500 snaps at corner, and they weren't super strong to begin with. Yeah, so they also don't have a 2nd, 4th, or 7th round pick this year based on their trades. They also don't have a 4th or a 6th next year. Got to get this right, and it's got to be a position of need and quality. Harrison really, really played well, especially at the zone. The way that Flores likes to play those zone blitzes, I think it's a really, really easy step in, do the right things, take it from there. So Harrison, I think, makes a lot of sense, and you have to make the most out of these picks. If you can trade down, I think you have to just pick up some more picks.
They are a premier trade back into the first, some more picks.
Yeah.
25 Houston.
They're a disaster.
Donovan Jackson, in Ohio State from Schrager. Pat McMillan at 25 from Kiper and Yates.
Jesus, that is interesting.
And I've got Tyler Booker, Jeremiah.
So I have Josh Connerly Jr. coming here. I think he's a criminally rated tackle. Love how progressed through the past of the year. Was elite against elite competition. Texans offensive line last year was 31st in run block win rate. 23rd in pass block win rate, and that was when they had Laramie Tunsil and they had the rest of the offensive line. They've lost over 2,000 snaps at the offensive line. They need so much help. They picked up a few people here with like Cam Robinson and Ed Ingram and Laken Tomlinson. I don't know if that's a really good answer. Connolly secures
it's snaps and experience, but
right,
quality.
Exactly. It's pretty clear to me that they need another offensive lineman if you're going to make C.J. Stroud better, if you're going to make that offense continue to run. Connerly only led up less than 1% against blitzes and stunts and was 1.5 in total pressure rate. Easy pick for me. Stabilize the offensive line. You obviously have your quarterback. Let's make this thing go.
26. Schrager has the Jackson Dart to
hate it.
At least it's at 26 and 19. Jeremiah has the Rams sticking. And we have Kiper and Yates giving us Mac corner.
Yeah. I have Trey Amos here because Harrison's off the board at Ole Miss. Just did a hell of a job finding some talent at defense this year. I was wrong about some of the people that he picked. Obviously, picked defensive player of the year at defensive end. Took his running mate to play defensive tackle, Fisher. But you're playing Darius Williams, you're playing Akil Witherspoon and Colby Durant as your corners. I don't think those are great options for you.
I think you get better.
I think Trey Amos helps you get a lot better. Was a great man corner, can play some press, can play some zone. Played in the SEC and held up on his own. There are some character concerns, which is why he slipped a little bit. But overall, I think this is an improvement to your corner room where you already have some good talent.
I already heard your pick at 27.
Yep.
Mecca Bukovic. I'll love any team that takes him back.
Yeah.
We have Schrager's got Josh Simmons falling 7 tackle. We got Malachi Starks from Kiper Yates, which I find interesting with a Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah.
And then we've got Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle out of Michigan, going. Interesting. Baltimore's always the classic BP.
Yeah,
there's a reason Baltimore's always in the AFC Championship contention because they do BPA as much. Lions is an interesting one here. I got Will Johnson, corner, Michigan from Schrager.
He falls that far. It's an easy, great pick.
Michael Williams for Piper, and we got Donovan Jackson out of State. So they have all the fallers going to Detroit. They definitely need more corner help. I know they stocked up last year and it got better.
Yeah. And they did sign Carlton Davis this year too, which does help a little bit. They also signed DJ Reed, which I think from the Jets, which he was their slot corner, played really, really well.
Didn't they just lose Davis and then sign Reed?
I said that wrong. I'm sorry, Davis. They signed Reed to replace Davis. I'm sorry, I'm just reading my notes here.
It's late in the night for us.
Yeah.
We still gotta wake up early to drive up.
It's early in the morning actually. So I have Josh Simmons going here, offensive tackle, Ohio State. I think if he'd been healthy the entire time, he would have been offensive tackle 1. Detroit clearly wants to be a ground and pound, run the ball, run off play action kind of team, assuming they continue to run the offense that they have from Johnson. Decker, Skipper, and Glasgow are 31, 32, and 33 respectively. You need to start adding, I think, some depth to that offensive line. The guard position can also be improved, I think, a little bit as well. You let Josh, again, he doesn't have to play today. You give him a full year to rehab off that ACL. Again, I think he would have been all, if you need to, or you come in and you replace, Taylor Decker as a 34-year-old tackle who just isn't himself anymore. Save yourself some money. You don't have to re-sign him. And again, Simmons, I think if he had stayed healthy, hadn't got hurt, would have been offensive tackle 1 to get him at 28 with some time to learn from Penny Sewell, to learn from that development, to learn from Dan Campbell. I think it's a heck of a steal and a way to really protect your future.
Fair. 29. I got Traeger taking Shmore Stewart. It's at 20. Crazy. The craziest one is Kiper has Cleveland trading back in for Jackson Dart with Washington and Jade Barron falling all the way to 29.
So I have Donovan Izariku out of Boston College. I'm sure I butchered that last name coming through.
Yep.
Super. Washington is not great at really a lot of those defensive positions, but their leading sacker left for Dallas at 10.5 with Dante Fowler. Frankie Louisville helps that group a little bit, but again, that doesn't want to be your lead edge guy.
Yep.
This year he had 13% pressure rate, 14 on early down, 14% against quality offenses. High floor, maybe a little lower ceiling, but clearly as the pass rush moves, can win with power, can win with speed. Knows his assignments, and again, as a Dan Quinn defense, they have very specific assignments where you're like, hey, you have to fill gap A, gap B, gap C, do your thing. Feels like he's a really good fit and can also provide some juice on the edge.
Fair. 30, Buffalo. I'm seeing Mel Starks from Schrager. I'm seeing Amos, and I'm seeing Amos. So clearly, I think secondary.
Yeah.
They clearly tried to address it and couldn't. Free agency.
Agreed. Yeah.
They are going for a championship. They know that they're. Why you sign Joey Bosa?
You think they bring Bristol Douglas back?
They should.
Packers guy.
They should. Yeah. Here's my thing. You've heard this strategy before.
Yeah.
Leave it till the day. You just need one bad motherfucker, whether he's actually playing well or not, just to shit talk and get a team ready.
Yeah.
Because those guys are also phenomenal locker room guys. Absolutely. To be like, yeah, fuck you, man. That's what Rasul said. I've said the same thing. The Packers lost a lot when they let Rasul Douglas go. Absolutely. And they didn't get it back until the next year.
Yep.
And when they traded him, they just went, our season's over, and then magically, season wasn't over. It's like, damn it, Rasul could have really helped against this fucking team. And goddamn it. Who do you got for Buffalo?
I got Walter Nolan here, defensive tackle from.
That's quite low for and by a lot of people's standards.
Yeah.
But
so the biggest thing I continue to hear is a guy that Philadelphia would steal, right? A lot of off the field issues, not necessarily
A lot of maturity issues from
Yes,
what I'm hearing.
But again, talent is immeasurable. Ed Oliver missed some time. Daquan Jones is on the wrong side of 30. Yep. I'm blanking on their other defensive tackle. He got suspended 6 games. Larry Obajade got suspended 6 games. So they need help here. They need the interior pressure. They've already signed, obviously, Shaq Lawson and Greg Rousseau, who's done a good job of playing both inside and outside. I think this is a tremendous steal, and you hope that Sean McDermott can kind of stabilize that locker room, whatever those issues are. And if he can, this is a phenomenal for the talent. He's a top 15 player. But again, everything I'm hearing is that there are concerns about what he's going to be doing once he has that kind of money time.
Now we go to our Super Bowl and the Super Bowl Sunday. Kansas City Chiefs. I'm seeing the edge of C, or I'm seeing John.
Yeah, I'm going Kenneth Grant here. Slipped a little bit, at least in my draft coming through. You can go left tackle. You probably go wide receiver. You can go corners. You kind of talked about. They got Christian Fulton, not necessarily the best, but you also maybe get that fix some of those issues for you. Yep. They lost again over 1,000 snaps of defensive tackle, and they only really got Jerry Tillery, who's not a great player and just more of a run snapper on a 1-year deal. Yep. Grant is a phenomenal run stuffer. 8.7% overall pressure rate. From the A-gap, 12.2% tackles for loss coming out of that Michigan team. Again, playing opposite Graham certainly helps you, but clearly he was asked to hold the point of attack, let Graham kind of be the rusher. Yeah. And again, I do think, as not that they didn't do a great job against Saquon Barkley, but clearly they had to overcommit resources to make that work, hence the A.J. Brown big shots, the things that happened from there. So I think having somebody that can hold up at the line of scrimmage, at the nose, at that maybe the just off 3 technique, the 4 technique, I think makes a really big difference on that defense for Steve's back.
And we go to, unfortunately, the Super Bowl champions and America. This is why America's in the shit. What is it?
Yep.
We have a horrible political system, and we have a horrible Super Bowl champion.
I agree.
And America's a better.
100%.
And of course, everyone has them getting someone fall into them that
I know.
love.
And I hate it so much. I hate even what I did.
Schrager has Maxwell Hairston, Kentucky, but this sounds like such a Philadelphia thing. Kiper and Jeremiah have Jihad Campbell.
Yeah. So I have James Pierce Jr. falling to them. If you're talking just ability, probably the second or third best pass rusher in the league coming out. 22% pressure rate, 20% against quality offenses. Can bend with the best of them, has such a good first step, has such good burst, can shed hands, can hit. Again, disappeared at times. There were times where he would just wash away and couldn't do anything. But again, if you're in that Eagles defensive line rotation, you only need to show up 15, 16 snaps a game. I hate this because it's going to make them so much better. Something it's tough, but again,
fuck the Eagles,
I know.
Fuck the Eagles.
The other pieces is that they probably have Sidney Brown is listed as a starter and Keely Ringo. They certainly use some defensive back help. I mean, both those players are not people I think the Eagles want to start. Obviously, Brendan Graham is gone. Josh Sweat is gone. You're going to ask Hurt Hunt to play 80% of snaps, so I think that rotation can also help. Howie's obviously shown he's interested in defensive backs in the trenches. For me, this is the best player on the board. It's what Howie does. I hate it because it's, I think, a really phenomenal pick, especially in a rotation like that.
Last couple drafts in / Rocket.
Yeah.
We're so painful.
Tell me about it.
I will never forget when the A.J. Brown came across. Yeah. They also got another good player. Son of a bitch. And on top of that, last year, we were just like, it's going to happen. He's going to fall. Yeah. He's going to fall.
Carter's going to fall.
Carter fell to them, and then Quinn Mitchell, we literally like, how's Mitchell going to fall?
Yep. And then
all three of us were just like, Mitchell's going to fall.
Yep. And yeah, the Brown one was tough because, I had been saying for years that, I had A.J. Brown that year coming out as my wide receiver too, I think.
Yep.
And I've always been a Brown guy. And I was like, and then just a straight up swap of first picks, and then watching Mike Vrabel leave the draft room that happened, being like, we're done. This is over. And then Traylon Burks is the same. Traylon Burks is not even an iota of what A.J. Brown is.
No.
So Philly, and credit where credit's due. Roseman has done such a good job of taking advantage of less informed or people not willing to take the risk, I guess. So while they win, it's certainly not Jalen Hurts, but everything else around him. But
Saquon Barkley helped.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
that offensive line is Saquon Barkley. Without Saquon Barkley, they Super Bowl.
They don't make the playoffs. But this has been a fun exercise. Appreciate having me on for it.
Absolutely.
And then we get to react tomorrow and see how wrong we really were.
I was gonna say, I'm really interested to see how Friday. Because Thursday night is always gonna be what the fuck with the. Friday morning is gonna be the. I don't really like that. Yeah. It's gonna be fun. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching wherever you are. I have to get this up in 35 minutes, so this is gonna be really fun. But it's gonna be fun seeing you guys. And again, if you do see us at the draft, even if you're just the one person who watches, we'd love to see you. Say hi. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. We'll catch you next time for some more draft stuff. Coming for it. Peace, love, and hugs to you all. Goodbye.
See you tomorrow.